Hey everyone.
Hello, hello. We're going to start things off and raise a glass to toast the amazing Vincent Maggio. So here's to you, Vince. That, of course, was one of a song that he always loved to play called I'm All Smiles. And I believe that was recorded in Gussman with Don Kaufman
Yeah.
on the bass and Steve Bagby on the drums.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of really special things like that. A couple weeks ago, I went over and dug into the archives at Trish Maggio's house, and she was so generous to have lent to me some really amazing treasures and finds that we're going to bring to you. And we just want to give you a quick heads up that there was so much love and fun and memories that it overspilled into, sorry. So one night was not enough. So we kind of, instead of a 4-hour show, which would have been just crazy
Yes.
for all of us, we're going to split this up into 2 nights.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night we'll be back with, I mean, really there's so many amazing things, and you're going to see right off the bat. You want to go ahead and get started with
Yeah. Well.
our kind of recent memories.
Yeah. Let's do that. I mean, I know that you have a much longer and deeper history with Vince than I did. I got to know Vince. He was really tight with my brother,
Yeah.
Michael, and of course I really only had one of his classes at the university. I had his advanced improv, so it was a group thing. I never really had a lot of contact with him, and until many years later, and really the last, I guess it was 3 years, is when I really started getting to know him. And of course, for me, he got a kick out of it, because when we would talk on the phone, it was always so pleasant. And I told him, you have a reputation of being a really stern guy, but now you're nice. And he thought that was so funny. And so I got to know the sort of fuzzy, cuddly, warm Vince.
Yeah. But still always and ever the teacher.
Intense.
Always,
when the
always.
subject came around to music, it was always that Vince. That, I mean, it's who he was.
Yeah.
It was that his view on music and his whole history. It came out anytime he spoke. But so we had, for me, it was really quite fun. A couple of years ago, we did a long road trip, and on our way back to Miami, we decided to stop and visit Vince and Trish, who had moved to St. Augustine by that time. And of course, so you spoke to Trish, I guess, and the next thing we know, she's sending us pics like this.
Yeah.
The menu that we were going to have.
Yeah, she loved to plan. Well, she loves to plan and entertain and stuff. So she knew we were coming, and so she had a whole meal plan, and what wine to serve with it, and so it really was quite. It was an event. It
Yeah.
wasn't just a hang. It was an event.
And let me yeah, she just had everything prepared. This appetizers, great appetizer, great dinner, and I have to say that also for me, that is probably my first lengthy time with Trish. I had seen her at the tribute they had for Vince at the university, so this was my first time just getting to know her, and she just could not be a more lovely person. So of course we had all these these dinners, and then we went again in December for the holidays, and so there you would sing a little bit with Vince. Trish sang with Vince at the piano, and of course he was completely in his element there. So I thought that was just a really nice thing. But the best part of the best part of our second visit, when we went in December, was over the holidays. So it was nice and cool, and the house was decorated, and everything was lovely. Well, we stayed overnight for that one, and when morning approached, after we had a nice night's sleep, I start hearing faintly, just the tickling of the ivories, in the distance, and I realized it was Vince.
The greatest alarm clock
Yeah,
ever.
it was. It was so good that I had to film it, and I did call it the best alarm clock ever. This is what we woke up to. This is the warm, cuddly Vince. Woo! And that's the way you're woken up in the morning in the Maggio household. I mean, that's pretty special.
I mean, just the fact that he's in his socks and his robe
Totally.
and just sitting at and you can hear Trish in the background cooking
Yeah, cooking.
breakfast. And,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
couldn't have been a better moment.
yeah.
And again, he loved that. He
Yeah.
loved that, and it was not bad from our end either. So anyway,
Absolutely. What we're going to do now, it's funny. I have had many incarnations with Vince from when I was a freshman and my first time in swing class, which I think I'll talk about tomorrow. Then to working on him as, with Jim as kind of like a coach for our duo. Then to working with him, socializing with him and that and the like, but also, we had a really great opportunity with the Miami String Project. He actually got to do what he had always wanted to do, and that is arrange beautiful strings for singers and for orchestra and really all the things that he was doing with his hands, he was able to then transfer back to the strings.
Right.
He learned all that stuff from strings and amazing arrangers, and then he was transferring it back to strings, and so it was really an amazing opportunity for me, for the kids, because they were in high school really, and they were just really high level players in high school, and he just made these beautiful arrangements for them to play, and I was lucky enough to sing one. So
well, let me
Go ahead.
also preface this, because I was teaching at the university at the time, and that's when he was retired, but he was doing this, teaching the classical players and I guess doing this project. So I ran into him on my way out, and he was on his way in, and he had actually told me about this song that we're going to hear, and I told him, because he knew that I love classical music. So he said, well, let me send it to you. And he sent me this email. This was in 2011. So, great to chat you this morning. Hope to see more of each other, which did happen, thankfully. This recording was done in 2008. And then he said, I was a guest composer conductor for 3 years during my quote unquote retirement. This chart came out pretty good. Hope you hear something you like. So the song was It Never Entered My Mind. And this is the song plus a little bit of a tribute. So Wendy Peterson with the Miami String Project and Vince Maggio.
Once I laughed when I heard you saying that I'd be playing solitaire, uneasy in my easy chair. It never entered my mind. Once you told me I was mistaken, that I'd awaken with the sun and order orange juice just for one. It never entered my mind. You have what I lack myself, and now I even have to scratch my back myself. Once you warned me that if you scorned me, I'd sing the maiden's prayer again and wish that you were there again to get into my hair again. It never entered my mind. Once you warned me that if you scorned me, I'd sing the maiden's prayer again and wish that you were there again to get into my hair again. It never entered.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, he was very proud of that, and rightly so. It really was just an amazing thing to sing, in front of that, and really helped feel, give me emotion too, just because it was so, it was so supportive and beautiful. So yeah, that was fun. That was good times for sure. I thought I was going to say something, and now I don't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sure it'll come to
I
you.
probably will, hopefully.
Well, it's a curious thing, fate. Although there's a few more comments here. Oh, they're piling in. So let's get them in before they, it's too late to do so. We were planning a third trip to St. Augustine. The weekend right after he passed away, so even though we knew he was dealing with his health issues, we were not quite prepared. So we were talking about it, and then we received the call. But you did end up going to visit with Trish.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I think a week later, right? And
yeah,
and got to look at some photos and talk, and
and just just be there for her, and she could be that for me, and it was lovely. We have so now it was enough about us, because we really could do the whole show just on how we feel about him and stuff. But so many people, wrote in and sent and stuff. But before we do that, when I was there with Trish, she brought out a whole bunch of pictures that I had never seen of Vince, and so this is her talking about a lot of the pictures. So this is, Vince's grandparents and parents and nephew, and just a little bit about him, and kind of his growing up. So this is Trish and talk, and then we're going to listen to her singing a little something with Vince.
So this is Grandma Dee. She was married to George R. Lawrence, who built the first panoramic camera, which took a picture of the Chicago World's Fair. I think I've got that right. She had her own Lawrence Island up in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where Vince learned to, good job, learned to fish. And they picked blueberries every morning and she made pancakes. Moving on to his mother and father, that's Clara Lawrence and Kelly Lawrence, Achilles, he was Greek. She married, when she was 17, her guitar teacher, okay? So he played every string instrument. And here he is on Vince's bike, which because Vince left it outside, he took it apart, hid it under the stairway, and didn't give it back to him for 9 months for a Christmas present. To teach Vince the lesson, you gotta maintain, you gotta do the right thing. Clara and I met 1984, before Vince and I married, and we just grabbed onto each other, and it was just wonderful knowing Clara, and she, of course, regaled Vince constantly. The only problem was she did it while he was playing. She'd be talking him up while he was playing, and he'd go, "Oh, Mom." So her grandson is Mark. Okay, this wasn't that long ago in our house in Miami. Mark worked for Pixar for a period, and he created the Ellen DeGeneres character of Dory in Finding Nemo based on his mother, Vince's sister. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we called this Under the Aspens again because 4 days after we met, we took a picture under the aspens in Aspen, Colorado. We knew after 4 days we wanted to marry. So this was probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, I'm guessing. Of course, wedding shot,
Yes.
Key Biscayne, May 11th, 1985. Vince worked the jazz circuit through the Midwest, and he created his own jazz trio, and they toured all over. I guess they did pretty well. So this was Mary Colby's recent letter to Vince, and just the swellest letter you'll ever read. Eloquent, funny, well, just like Mary herself. This was a poem that I wrote Vince when we first met. Again, after 4 days, we knew we wanted to marry, and we saw each other cumulatively 28 days over 9 months. Me flying to Miami, he flying here. And it was just, I would go to a payphone in the park, Wagner Park in Aspen, and anyway, that's something I wrote to my piano man.
To her piano man, I love that. I wanted to show this one picture. She has this framed in the house, and it's like the program of the Aspen Jazz Festival, and the picture on the top left is actually her singing, and but it's on the program for Vince's solo piano concert. So they had never met, they did not know each other at this point, they had not met, but she's on the cover of his program, and she just thought that was so neat, and she had it framed in the house. And it really is just fantastic to think that after 4 days you could know that you'd want to get married, and they were together for such an amazingly long time. Also, I had some pictures of Vince that she gave to me, and this is just like his high school graduation photo, and it's just to see that it's just fantastic. And here's him, when he was very young, playing the piano, the piano that, his childhood piano that he had for his whole entire life, which is pretty cool. And one of his favorite things, he really was, you think of Vince as like the most amazing piano teacher, but he was also loved being outdoors on the mountains and fishing. And so here he is in Colorado. And also again in Colorado. These might be she was telling me pre-Trish, but you can see how much she loved the outdoors and his things and nature. So yeah, definitely. Michelle says, yep, he's Italian. He definitely looks Italian. The thing that killed me the most about those pictures, I wish we had the still to show again, is that that picture of his mother with the braids, the crown of braids on her hair. It is literally Vince's face. Oh, you're going to try to get it for me?
I might.
It's
I might be able to.
Vince's face on over a woman. Not that she looked manly or anything. She was actually really cute and charming, but it just struck me as being, wow, talk about, really looking like your mom. No, it's not going to happen.
It is hiding in there somewhere.
Okay, it's all right. It's okay.
Maybe we'll close the show with that.
Maybe we'll find it.
Yes.
We want to play now for you a song that Vince
Oh, yes.
and Trish recorded. I'm not sure of the year. It wasn't that long ago, but it was before they left Miami at the UU, I believe.
That's what life's all about.
My name is Bill Warrenoff. I got my master's degree from the jazz program at the U of Miami in 1976 and was fortunate to study with Vince Maggio for 2 years. I was so very sad to hear of his passing. His guidance, spirit, and sheer love for music and for communicating his knowledge to his students was just incredible. I can't say in words how much he meant to me. I've made my living over the years mainly as an arranger, orchestrator, and sometimes producer of music, largely in commercials for TV and radio, but also to a degree in other media, CDs and sound recording, film music, music for live performance, and also a lot of live playing here and there. I was active in both New York and Chicago, and I'm still doing some arranging here in New York. When I arrived at U of Miami, I was already a fairly knowledgeable arranger. I had studied at Eastman School of Music for several summers at their Arrangers Workshop Institute and had done various gigs around New York for a long time. But I didn't have a good way of pulling things together and of filling in the gaps until my days at the U of Miami. Vince had faith in me right from the beginning and encouraged me in so many ways to work on and improve my skills. I recognized the great opportunity I had for growth, inspired by this wonderful musician and great analyst of the music. Like most great teachers, he encouraged and pushed me to learn and study things far beyond what we had the time to work on together. Vince was the moving force behind the organization of what was called the Studio Jazz Orchestra, not to be confused with the Concert Jazz Band, which I believe in the official university bulletin was sometimes referred to by that name as well. I assisted Vince with much of the organizing and recruitment for what started out as a not-for-credit ensemble. But Vince really did the heavy lifting, especially in getting administrative approval from the powers that be. Wasn't an easy task, and it did soon become an official for-credit ensemble. The group brought together different elements from the music school: classical players, some of the jazz players, and singers. This was before the jazz vocal major existed. This act of bringing together was a great achievement at the time. Our ensemble consisted of strings, woodwinds, small brass section, including French horns, and we had harp, percussion, and piano, bass, and drums, with occasional others as needed, mostly as soloists. Very often the arrangements served as orchestral backgrounds for singers. The non-jazz players especially learned an extraordinary amount by taking part in this music and being guided by Vince. His sincere excitement and enthusiasm was just inspirational, and it transferred itself to the students in a big way. I wrote most of the arrangements at the beginning and was the main conductor, with Vince acting as the coach. Few other students also wrote and conducted. We worked it out so that we could pause the rehearsals as much as needed for Vince to have musical input. He really helped the players to understand the music and what their different roles or functions were at different times. A great education for them, and also a great education for me, developing my skills as a conductor, which was enormously valuable to me in my career. Vince recorded the rehearsals on cassette, and we'd spend many hours going over the tapes of the rehearsals. I remember our first performance with the Studio Jazz Orchestra, April 1975, at a Friday Jazz Forum. The word had spread through the school that something interesting was happening, and the room was packed. Out the door, as I recall. It was a great concert and a great moment for Vince. Very fulfilling for him, with so many of the faculty members present. I learned a lot about working with and coaching singers from Vince, and that functionality made me much more valuable in working as an arranger. I've done a lot of producing of the vocals in my recording sessions, and being so familiar with working with singers was a huge help. I saw on Facebook that Vince's Studio Jazz vocal class was mentioned. This was a great experience as well. The way Vince could break down the contents of a piece of music or a performance into teachable elements for the students to learn from, both singers and piano students, was superb. I'll leave it to the singers to describe this class in more detail. I am very glad that in recent years I was in touch with Vince and was able to communicate with him on many occasions how much he meant to me and to so many of his students. My heart goes out to Vince's dedicated and loving wife, Trish. Trish, he was so lucky to have you. We will all miss Vince so very much. Rest in peace, my teacher, my friend. Rest in peace.
Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Strange, and I was Vince's student and friend. And Vince was kind of a second father to me. And one of the things I really loved about Vince is that he didn't sugarcoat the truth. So, and I didn't want him to, because I wanted to understand exactly what's going through the mind and ears of a person who'd played with Cannonball Adderley and Mel Torme and Paul Motion and many, many, many other great musicians, and who lived with Bill Evans and who took lessons with Oscar Peterson. I wanted to know exactly what he was thinking, and he paid all of his students the compliment of being close and not playing a political game with them, but just telling them exactly what he was thinking, and also how to work on, if there was a problem, how to work on it and how to fix it with clarity, and I appreciate that. He was a man with a very keen analytical mind and an ability to look at the fine nuances of music and put words to them, to those nuances, and describe them accurately and memorably, and then insist on them in lessons and in ensembles until people actually took those values to heart. And I think that the greatest compliment that any of us can pay Vince is through our playing, if we can honor the values that he taught us, and then hopefully that we've internalized and made our own at this point. And so it's with great sadness that I learned of his passing, and frankly made my stomach kind of feel bad. But on the other hand, it's a time to celebrate Vince and to celebrate the values that he taught us, and those hundreds of different points, each one of them valuable and important, and something that will tangibly improve your playing. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Vince and I were at odds for many years until Whit Seidner put us together as roommates at the IHA convention in Long Beach. So after several days of drinking wine and telling Bill Evans stories, Vince, not me, we were fast friends from then on. I used to have Vince come into my drum set classes, and he would impart his wisdom on my students, and I would learn something new every single time. Vince called just a couple of days before his passing, sounded really upbeat. He said he was playing piano, he ditched his walker. He told me some great Steve Bagby stories. What's the most important beat? The one coming up. And I promised him that I would carry the torch for him, and that I will, Vince.
Hi, Matt Pinelli here. My relationship with Vince started when I was a young student at UM. My sophomore year, my brother John, who had just moved to Florida, had a little cocktail party, and his pianist was unable to make the gig. So he asked me to ask if anybody at school would want to come and do the gig. So I, being naive and cocky, went straight to Vince and said, hey, do you know anybody that would like to do a cocktail party next Saturday in Broward County? So he fired off like 4 or 5 questions, like without batting an eye. Is there a piano? What does it pay? What do I have to wear? And then I satisfactorily answered those questions, and he said, okay, I'll do it. And I was like shocked, of course, but and the other question was, are you going to drive? So I picked him up, we drove to the gig, had a great time in the car, talking about being growing up Italian American in Chicago for him and New York for me. We got to the gig, I brought my stuff in, and I went to park the car, and he was speaking to my brother John. I found this out later. And he said, Matt's going to be in school all afternoon. I need for you to just play with me as best you can, no matter what I do to him. We've all been there. So he had John sit up at the end of the piano, and I stood in the crook of the small baby grand piano. And we played 2 or 3 tunes that he knew that I knew, and everything seemed to be okay. And then he started my lesson. He said, you know the girl from Ipanema, don't you, Matt? And I said, oh yeah, great, He said, you know what? I like to play it in D. It's much brighter and happier that way. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. So I was cockily able to get through the A sections with no problem. When it came to the bridge, I balked, and his left hand went boom to hit the E flat because he knew that I wasn't going to be there. I learned 2 lessons on that gig. One is the value of transposing by Roman numerals, and 2, the value of ear training. He did all kinds of stuff to me, calling substitute changes, this and that and the other thing. And we all saw him do that in class with people. But he did it for 3 hours while playing the piano and burning his ass off. It was a great introduction to our relationship, and I value it. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Jim Trumpeter. I studied with Vince in mid-80s from 1983 to 1985. And Vince was one of the most incredible teachers I ever had in college, one of the best teachers I ever had. And Vince was an influence in so many ways. First and foremost, what he taught me on solo piano was lessons which I still carry to this day, which I have passed on to my piano students at DePaul and Roosevelt. His approach was the most musical, the most organic, and the way in which he taught it was like nobody I'd ever experienced before. His passion, his conviction was unmatched. And everything that he did was for our growth. He wasn't the easiest guy to be with at times because he had such high expectations and he expected the very, very best of all of us. But that drive carried each and every one of us through our time at Miami and onward to the rest of us in the world. Whenever I speak to any people that went to Miami, the first teacher that everybody agrees with, they say Vince was one of the most important influences they had. They also speak of Ronnie Miller and DeWitt and other teachers, but boy, people just have stories about Vince. He was really larger than life. His personality was like none we'd ever seen. I do want to tell a couple quick stories about Vince. My first lesson with Vince, I got a scholarship and I'm down there. I'm a transfer student and I sit down in his studio and play a song. And I play Wave, Joe Beam's Wave, and I play this, and I worked out this really cool reharm, or I thought was a cool reharm, and I played this arrangement. And I finished it, and I go, oh man, I felt great. I thought I nailed it. And like this dead silence for I swear it felt like an hour, but it was probably a minute of dead silence. And he looked at me with this puzzled look on his face and he goes, well, those are some nice chords, but what happened to the melody? And I was just, my mouth was like, after my mouth recovered, he was like, you can have all those great chords. Doesn't matter if you can't hear the melody. The melody is the most important thing. That was my very first 5 minutes of my first lesson with Vince. And boy, you were right, Vince, 100% of the time, always. You couldn't have been more right about that. The other thing I want to tell about Vince was he was your biggest champion. He cared about his students throughout our lives. I've been talking to him since I left school in the mid-'80s. And he would come to Chicago with Mark Holby, and I would have him over. And, he had such a strong presence, such a powerful personality. There will be nobody like him. And all we can do to honor him is to carry forward the incredible, selfless lessons that he gave each and every one of us. The impact he's made on all of us is unmatched. And I will always love and revere him and thank the world for all the incredible gifts that he shared musically. Vince, I'll always love you, buddy. Rest in peace. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on his behalf.
Wow, so many faces, so many memories. It's just fantastic. Bill Warnoff was talking about the Studio Jazz Orchestra, and I know that really was something that he was immensely proud of. So we kind of put together a couple of things for you to check out that was from the 70s era and Studio Jazz Orchestra. And so we are going to start off with Curtis McConley talking a little bit about it, and then we'll listen to something. And yeah, so here, take a listen to this, Studio Jazz Orchestra.
Hi, I am Curtis McConley, a student of Vince from 1972 to 1976. Vince has had an incredible impression on me, be it as a pianist, a jazzer, a writer, and frankly, for just being an artist. I contribute all that I have achieved in my career in part to the teachings that I have received from Vince. I have played piano or keyboards for many settings, have accompanied many singers, and have written for major symphonies. Fortunately, Vince and a student started the Studio Jazz Orchestra, I think probably in the year of 1974, for which I had written arrangements. That was really the beginning of my career as an arranger and composer. I now do write for symphonies for major artists and have recorded my own compositions with the orchestra and other ensembles. I want to thank Vince, if he is listening, for his teachings, continued support, and encouragement. And most of all, for being my dearest friend. God bless us all with Vince's impact and inspiration, not only on my life, but all that are joining us today. May you rest in peace, my friend.
Hey Vince, it's Lisa Nappy. I want to thank you for the music, everything that you gave to me, everything you taught me about singing a standard, singing a tune, how to identify with the lyric, how to phrase, how to think about what I was trying to impart to whoever was listening. But more than that, what I really love about you is that after 40 years of us working together in school and at the Studio Jazz Orchestra, and after all the wonderful experiences we had while I was in school in the early to mid 70s, you would pick up the phone and call me, and we would talk about our lives now, but our lives back then, and who we were as people and how we'd grown and changed. And every time I heard your voice, it brought me right back to that time of wonder and learning, and it was a very precious and poignant time in my life. Thank you very much for everything you taught me and everyone who came in contact with you and all of your other students. Rest in peace, my dear friend, and I'll miss speaking with you, and I'll miss you, miss knowing that you're around and that you're here. All my love.
What I see inside those eyes of starlit skies and moonlit seas, a certain smile that touches me. Sweet reality. In the sun I shimmer from the song I sing for only you. I'm so high I'll sing my sweet reality. A toast is made to reigning hearts, soaked in kindness from the start. Now it's time when I touch you. I feel a little less inside. Feel a lot colder each time you're with me. You are the only one that matters to me. Why are you blind to the one who loves you? You are the one I live for. You are the one I hope for. You are the one I care for. You are the one I dare for. I love you.
I want to take a moment to thank you, Vince Lawrence Maggio, for getting me started on the right path many years ago and instilling in me the value and the beauty of the art of jazz. Rest in peace.
So just a little bit of Studio Jazz Orchestra, but you can see how incredible it was, and I can't imagine. I wish it had continued when I was in school, because that, you know, it is really something to be able to sing in front of an orchestra and have that experience. It's unlike anything else, and I think vice versa. I think it's great for string players and you know the whole orchestra to you know have that experience of, you know, playing other than classical, you know, the jazz standards. It's really an amazing thing. Vince was kind of like a collector of people that he loved and enjoyed their talent and their beings. And once you were on that list, you know, it really was like Lisa said, you know, you would just get a call and he would want to talk. And it would, you know, for decades, you know, that's just the way he was. And as he got older, he never stopped collecting people, and it didn't matter how old you were or how young you were. You know, he just would find something, a germ of something that he really enjoyed and wanted to nurture, you know, whether it was emotionally or musically or whatever. So when I was singing with Miami String Project, you know, that was full of high school students, there was just this one amazing violinist. A beautiful girl, beautiful like inside and out, beautiful soul, beautiful body, and beautiful talent. I mean, just she had something special, and he honed in on that. He was, you know, and he actually became like a little bit of a father figure to her for a little bit of a time, and really just helped her with improvising and just finding her, you know, kind of true essence, you know, in music. And so so we wanted to play this little clip of them playing together.
And it was recent, right?
And this was pretty, you know, within the last 10 years.
I think it was last fall she wrote.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
that
there you
video.
go. So
Yeah.
so you know more than I.
Well, there you go.
But it was a beautiful relationship, and I know it meant a lot to him, and I know it meant a lot to her. And she didn't really feel comfortable talking about it, but she sent this in to be played. This is Ari Urban. Oh yeah, that's
I
Ari.
think that might have been Vince's most reliable drummer.
Yeah, Dr. Beat with emphasizing the triplets. But you know what? He never stopped using the metronome ever. I mean, that's his time was incredible, and still, he always liked to play with the metronome to keep him honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just so amazing.
Yeah, let's go on with a few more tributes here, and then we're going to talk about another aspect of Vince's life and his interest that not many people know about. I didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, going on.
I'm David Reutstein, and I play Waltz for Debbie a lot, especially when I go to try out a new piano and get to know it. And every time I do that, I have Vince's voice in my head telling me exactly how to tilt my right hand at the right angle to make the top note sing out above everything else. Thank you, Vince. I started at the University of Miami in 1972 and was one of the lucky ones to be with Vince when he was in the early stages of figuring out how he wanted to teach everyone. And I loved that time. Now, my first semester at the university, he said, "David, you're not ready." And he put me with a classical pianist graduate student for the first semester. I think about Vince every time I teach a new student to learn to play tunes, and how he always stripped down the tunes to the thirds and sevenths to help you learn the song through the inner melodies and the voice leading. I think of Vince every time I play with a singer and accompanying them and orchestrating behind them, but also helping them find the perfect key for their voice with that melody. And his joy in playing tunes in different keys just to discover a new color in the tune and to learn it better. Playing with singers, he always insisted that all of us pianists learn all of the lyrics so that we could really tell the story, that words matter. I think of Vince every time I play a solo or teach someone about improvisation. It always made me laugh that for many, many years, Vince's email address has been melodicdevelopment@gmail.com. That says it all. I think of Vince in Time Feel, how to swing, his focus on articulation and phrasing, and how he had the amazing ability to teach, to diagnose somebody's rhythm approach, and he could help them all make a huge improvement immediately. Vince was the best at that, always. I think of Vince with all the principles of orchestration at the piano and with instruments and voices. I think of Vince every time I listen to a recording and remember how deeply he insisted we listen to recordings, just deep listening. I think of Vince when I eat Italian food. I remember many visits after we moved to Los Angeles, and Rosie and I would go back to Miami, and I would always check in with Vince, and we'd end up meeting at this little Italian place on South Dixie Highway, and the owner would greet Vince like he was family. I remember on those trips going to his house and spending time with Trish. Thank God for Trish. Really, she is the best person on earth to have been Vince's partner for so many years. Thank you, Trish. I think of Vince when I think about fishing. One summer, Rosie and I spent in Aspen, Colorado, where Vince used to go every summer. And it became clear to me pretty soon that in Aspen, people didn't know anything about Vince's life and music. They just thought of him as the best fly fishing guide in town. He was just as good a teacher in fly fishing as he was at piano and music. And I'll finish up by just saying how much Vince helped all of us. Vince spent a lot of time with Carmen Lundy and me early on and helped us become musicians and professionals. He introduced us to Billy Strayhorn's Lush Life. And I still play that tune often, and I play it and think about it just like Vince taught us. Thank you, Vince. We love you.
Hello, I'm Robert Rodriguez, and Vince Maggio was a great teacher and mentor to me. I had the privilege of studying piano with him for 4 years at the University of Miami, and each lesson was an adventure. We spent a lot of time at the piano. I spent a lot of time talking about music, listening to music, talking about life and the lessons and knowledge he passed along to me. I teach and try to profess to this day. He was all about the swing. He was all about encouraging young pianists and giving them the tools to develop and to continue developing their skills. He was old school. He was one of a kind, and he will be missed.
So great. I just wanted, it's hard when the comments come in for one person after they're already gone. But I did want to share a couple of things. Bill Kreitner wrote in while, during Dave Reutstein's, Vince, he's, talking about, he said, Vince told me many times that he never criticized an aspect of a student's playing unless he could offer a way to solve the student's particular challenge. So that, what came out of the tough love, but it was also, something that he always would try to fix. Clay Oswald, whenever I think of Vince, I'm grateful for you too, Dave. I felt like I had 4 years of incredible teaching that is with me every time I sit at the piano. Let's see, Jeff Babco said, yeah, Dave, what you're saying, and playing. Thanks for introducing me to this giant we so love. So it's just, Larry Lappin said, yes, Dave, rhythm and time feel was so important to him, so obvious in his playing and teaching. So it's just all of these things that came after the fact, and we didn't want to, and they were long too, so I didn't want to cover up somebody's face while they were talking. But yeah, this is the thing, he wasn't prejudiced with his gift of music. He would give whatever he had, he would give it to the students. Some were ready for the lessons, some were not. Some sank in 20 years later, and as things do, which is kind of fantastic in its own right. We wanted to take Steve Quincy is also writing, hey, I feel the same way, Dave, because, it is true. As tough as he was, it came from such a place of love, usually. I don't want to say every time because everybody's experience is different, but I genuinely think that if he was tough on you, it was because he knew you could be better. And he was willing to go down that journey with you to be better.
Listen, we've had this conversation. We've mentioned it on shows with other guests before about the way teaching has changed, and now everybody's a winner and everybody's doing, passing. That school is the reason why you can have, this many people responding to you when you're gone. It's meaningful. It's not just a free pass, and
you had to work.
It was difficult, but everyone is thanking him for it, and they have the fruits of his labors are evident in what they've become, and that's the real testament, right?
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one, which Dave did touch on a little bit.
So this is from Tony Wells. He sent this into us. Vince was a great teacher, friend, and fly fishing mentor. I'll miss our days on the water and at the bench tying tight loops. Maestro, you will be missed. So we do want to play a video now about the joys of jazz and fly fishing.
So to me, the composition of a fly, the design of a fly, has to represent some kind of flow in the same way as composition of a piece of music. They have to do with design and materials. For example, this particular fly is made from rug yarn, gold bead chain, feathers, a little bit of flash in the back, which is kind of hard to see, and chartreuse thread. So the design of this fly means that the materials have to be compatible. I have to have a fundamental color, a fundamental shape, and then as I build it, as I assemble it, I have to select materials that are going to blend well together. The relationship to jazz is that as an improviser, you'll start with a theme, and then you will proceed to develop that theme with ideas of your own and embellishments of your own, and all of a sudden it becomes your own composition, but it has its origins in a basic design. I think it helps to have pianist hands. I've seen some marvelous fly tyers, much better than me, that aren't pianists, but they could be. So I've sort of become an angler and a musician as sort of in parallel tracks. And I would say the Maggio method pretty much boils down to don't do it if you don't mean it, and if you are going to do it, you have to do it really well.
I'll start by saying hello. I'm Joe Donato, or as the maestro called me, Giuseppe, and I called him Maestro, and that was our names for each other. I guess the first time I met Vince was in 1970. I, along with the great Mike Gerber, were his first two students. He did have a student on the side, Mike Levine, but he was taking, in a sense, private lessons. But Mike and I were officially his first two students. I guess the university figure, Vince is new here, we'll give him the best and the worst. And that was Mike Gerber, and you know which one I am. But with Vince, I would kind of talk about other things other than the piano, philosophy of this and And once in a while, I would take my handkerchief up and start cleaning the little schmutz that goes in between the keys. And he would say, "Did you come here to play the piano or clean the pianos?" So I said, "No. I noticed this thing here," and we would have a lot of conversation. But I found out that I couldn't really keep up with what he wanted me to accomplish. Beside being a student, I was a fan of his. Anytime I had a date that I wanted to really impress, I would take her to the yacht South Seas. Have you heard of that? It was Vince and Ira together doing a duo, grand piano on the boat, and very, very, very. What else? What else do you need? It was beautiful, perfect. So yeah, I would go and hear him, and then he paid me such a great honor, compliment, and lifted me up and made me the lead alto player with the Baker's Dozen. And so that was, that's, I think, one of his favorite things in his life. He was very proud of that because he had the best of the best in the band, and he was doing a lot of the writing, and the concept was really unique. Here's like a big band, but functioning like a small group. Plenty of improvisation, and the arrangements were special. So the Baker's Dozen, that was the time together. It's always been special with him. When you see these pictures I sent, you'll see how close we were. Here's some pictures at Vince's Lifetime Achievement Award. Here's two Italian guys that are really happy. And now here's the same two Italian guys. They're so happy, they're crying. We would have some really special get-togethers. It seemed like the Italian-American club, because it was the Giorginis and the Bonsantis, the Donatos, and the Maggios. And we would have just a beautiful break bread, as they say, and drink wine. So, speaking of wine, later on we'll have a little saluda to the great Vince Maggio, the maestro, with love from Giuseppe.
Salud.
Salud.
To Vince Maggio.
Yeah. Wanted to bring this one in here.
Joe Davidian wrote, I had no idea Vince was such an avid fly fisherman when I got to UM, and that made me love him even more. Yeah, just, yeah, I had already put that
Okay.
in, but that's good, yeah.
So,
and then, of course, Paisans.
Paisans.
Speaking of Michelle Amato, she wrote, sent us a beautiful, beautiful tribute. And she's singing, maybe she talks about it on the video.
She does not, actually.
Oh, okay, good. She's singing a song that, I think he must have shown this song to all of his favorite singers, because I know he showed it to you, he showed it to me, and he just loved this. I know Tony Bennett's version was kind of like for his his go-to version of this, but it's a song that you don't know. I mean, I think you found it eventually. You had to like find it. It wasn't even on YouTube for the longest time, and it was really hard to find. It's called Once in a Garden, and sung by one of my favorite singers, the one and only Michelle Amado.
I was one of those folks who actually didn't have as much interaction with Vince in school. I did have the pleasure of singing in his studio orchestra a few times, and we rehearsed for those concerts, but most of my interaction with him was actually on a gig as a colleague. I quickly found out that the context and the venue really didn't matter. You could be in a practice room in the Foster building, you could be in 206 or in Gusman Hall, or on the second floor of a very fancy hotel in Coconut Grove, or in his living room, just hanging out and eating and drinking and doing music. It wasn't about where you were, it was about the music and communication. I'm sure that's a theme that everyone is getting across tonight here about Uncle Vincenzo. So, a couple of gig stories. I learned that early on because I was a little uncomfortable with improvisation still, even when I started the job with Vince. And he wanted me to understand that there was a lot more on my palette and in my vocabulary than I realized. So one night I was singing a chorus on I Thought About You. And not only did he stop playing, he got up from the piano and went and stood at the bar and watched me and the bass player do about 5 or 6 choruses of the song. And I was just absolutely terrified by the end of that moment of time, 6 choruses. I was really upset and let him know it, and didn't really talk to him the rest of the evening or the next Friday night. We finally discussed it, and I said, I just can't believe you did that. And he said, I never would have done it if I'd thought you wouldn't do exactly what you did, which was come through it. He said, what did you learn? I said, well, melodic development got better, and my rhythmic interpretation I felt like was more interesting, and I thought about my pacing. And he stopped and he said, okay, then my job was done there. And it was. That's how he did it. The method wasn't always what we would all do, but it was always about the end result with Vince. And I really appreciated that from him. Another moment on the gig that was really funny, I learned quickly that you don't tell Vince to noodle. I was looking for some music, and I was just in the habit, I don't know, whatever. I just was going on automatic pilot, and I said, noodle. And he gave me a look like, the only thing I can compare it to is when Michael finds out that Fredo already knew Johnny Ola. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That's the look I got. And I never told him to noodle again. And we laughed about that later on. I want to thank Trish for the moments that we had together with Vince in the living room, eating great food that you prepared, Trish, for us, and drinking wine, and just enjoying each other's company and enjoying music. And that's the Vince that I'm going to always remember. And not the Johnny Ola look on his face, even though that did stick with me for a while. The look I'm going to remember is him watching Trish when she would sing, when he would play. And the joy that emanated from him is something that I will take with me forever. Thank you, Uncle Vincenzo, for the gifts that you gave us, the lessons that you taught us, and helping us to grow.
Back to the past.
like silent snow to settle in your hair. Sometimes I walk that lonely country lane. My statues wet with rain, and search for it in vain. And yet I'll always know as the years come and go. Once in a garden, summer was new, and I was there with you.
That was nice. Yeah, Michelle.
Great song too. So you know that we have decided to do this in two separate nights. So tomorrow night will be the rest of it. We have one more segment with coming up right now with Randall and Jamie Owsley talking about the Miami Jazz Trio that they had. But want to let you know that tomorrow we've got Dennis Marks, and we have a tribute from Dan Bonsanti and Daryl Grant, and the founders of MSP. We have Bill Kreitner and Jackie Presti and Larry Lappin and Eric Allison and Cheryl Fisher and John Regan and Richard Todd, Joe Davidian and Jeff Babko and Martin Bejarano and Jim Gager and Vince and his dad. We have a recording of Vince and his dad playing, which is, oh my gosh, we have Mike Gerber, we have Mike Levine, we have Vince and Mark Colby, and we have Vince's trio when he was 20 years old. So we have so much tomorrow night. It's not like, we've got a couple things here and a couple there. It's just, I'm telling you, it's overwhelming how much fantastic gifts we were left with. I'm really excited.
And just so you know, we're not misspeaking. We're not waiting till next Monday to do it. We decided to do 2 nights in a row, so it will be tomorrow night, 7:55. We'll be starting up.
If you can't watch it, everything will be archived, so you can go back at your leisure and watch it. Oh, Brenda Alford will be on tomorrow night also as well.
Yeah.
So just a lot of really more great stuff. But we're going to end tonight with Randall Dollahan and Jamie Owsley and the Miami Jazz Trio.
I was never his student. I was his colleague right from the beginning. I came from Texas in 1974 to teach. I actually took the place of a teacher who was leaving. The person I replaced was Pat Metheny before he was famous. He had just gotten hired by Gary Burton's quartet and the Berklee School of Music for the spring semester of 1974, and they were desperately in need of a new teacher. So I came down and did the audition and got the job. I had played with some pretty good piano players in Houston, younger and older. But the first time I ever heard Vince play, I think it was at school, I said to myself, that's the real thing and no mistake. I think a lot of people think something like that. That is the real thing. No doubt about it. This is a person who knows all the history. I didn't know a thing about him. I was just kind of in shock. That was really, really good playing. Some months after that, I believe I got my first opportunity to play with Vince and I believe it was one on one of Joe Donato's commercial jobs. And what I remember is, for the first set, Vince was kind of morose, sour, kind of glum. He might have thought that I was one of those guitar players who never listened to the piano players they were playing with. But I started noticing as we went through the set that his expression brightened up a little bit, and I think it finally dawned on him that I was actually listening to what he was doing and trying to make something work. And by the time we got to the first set and I had a cocktail, we were friends. And shortly thereafter, I think we arranged to play our first duo for him. And I don't remember the details of that too much. The earliest one I have recorded, I have a cassette tape, 1977. And that's an interesting thing to listen to. So from that point on, we enjoyed that process so much, we did it at least once a year and sometimes more. And always a learning experience. It was, I sometimes knew songs he didn't, but more often than not, he knew songs that I didn't, which I was eager to learn. And what better way to learn? You had to focus and concentrate to a greater degree than with most people, because he heard everything. And you couldn't let the time slip. There had to be no funny business about the time. So a lot of concentration going on. But at the same time, I could relax because I knew that whatever I was going to do, he was going to catch me. He was going to make me sound better than I was, no matter what I did. This was from one of our many concerts that we did at school, at the Jazz Forum, which was the Friday get-together where students played, guests played, faculty played. And this wasn't, like I said, we started doing them in 1977, so this one is from 2002, so we've been doing them for a long time, more than 20 years. This is a song titled Thou Swell. It's by Richard Rodgers, and I think it was written in 1927, probably for a show. It's a wonderful song, but almost nobody plays it, so it was perfect for us. So we got started, and we would rehearse. We would play through them. And sometimes the performance would actually be like the rehearsal. But I learned early on, watch out. Anything can happen. And frequently did. So I was always alert. Didn't know what to expect, but expect the unexpected always. So this is one that got kind of wild. I still can't believe it sometimes that it didn't come unglued at some point.
So I want to just tell about, how I first met Vince was in we called it swing class at UM. It was one of my first classes, my very first semester, and I was a graduate student. And most of the other students were undergrads, but anyway, I go in there thinking like I know something about playing the bass, and every day I would leave class with my head hanging low, thinking, "Oh my gosh, if I was Ron Carter, this guy wouldn't like how I played. What can I do?" And finally, after about a month, Vince called me to his office and sat me down, and he's like, "Jamie, you're in my class. You're my student, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Well, I'm your teacher. Why don't you try some of the things, I'm teaching you? That's what I'm here for, right?" It's like, "Oh, yeah." And, ever since then, that conversation, and it was a little bit painful conversation, because Vince told me, it's like, you come off as being arrogant, and like you know something, or you're so defensive all the time. So just try the concepts I'm teaching you, and then if you don't like them, then discard them. So, I did that. I really took his advice, and, I appreciated it because Vince presented it like, I was a bass player he was interested in, maybe to be in his ensembles, maybe the Bott Brothers someday, his combo. And, that just, ever since then, I just, bid it hook, line, and sinker and just tried everything, all of Vince's ideas. And it really is the best class I ever had. He was the best teacher I ever had. And eventually, I kept studying with him even after I graduated. I studied improvisation with him, which really made a difference in my playing as I became a professional. And we became friends when we started to play together in the Miami Jazz Trio. And, we celebrated even some family moments together. So but even then, he was still always the teacher. Even our last conversation, we were talking about improvisation and how my students were, and how was I going to communicate this concept to them. And so it's just that's who Vince is for me. He's my teacher.
Do you remember?
Well, I wasn't in the conversation when you guys decided to invite a bass player to your duo.
I honestly don't remember why. The circumstances of.
Well, I think Vince got tired of walking bass lines.
Yeah, I think that's what he says. So you were the natural choice to come up.
Well, and it was quite an honor, and I can remember the first couple rehearsals being very intimidated playing with you guys.
We couldn't tell.
Well,
he fit right in, right at the beginning, and made it easier on us, and kind of rounded things out. It's always fun to play the trio music that we came up with.
We would rehearse about once a week.
The rehearsals were a lot of fun in themselves.
We would kind of choose the songs, and a lot of times they were songs I never heard of. But that was good for me. And a lot of times Randall would write out the charts.
I like to bring in material that wasn't heard a lot, that wasn't overplayed. So I tended to reach back and, how about such and such? Nobody plays that anymore. I like bringing those songs to the fore. And more often than not, Vince was totally on board with that because he knew them. That's one of the things we shared right from the beginning, is a love of the old repertoire and great songs.
Yeah, and Vince especially was a stickler for the composer's original harmony a lot of times, as opposed to
unless he found some nice substitutes that he wanted to do.
Which he usually just thought of on the cuff.
Yeah.
But when we actually had the charts and we were working on the tunes, like, no, this would be a diminished chord right here, not this 2/5 that the jazz guys would throw in,
Yeah.
Yeah. And Vince, a lot of times he would show me, then he'd play me a recording of one of the original versions, with orchestra. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
With the original harmony. When I came to UM, one of the very first jazz forms I heard was them playing a duo, and I was like, oh wow, that's what I want to learn how to do. So then, I don't know, 15 years later, now I'm playing with these guys. I'm very honored, to be invited to this historical group, and didn't want to mess it up. So, but look, we're playing in the old, we call it the Nat King Cole style group, piano, guitar, and bass, no drums. And so, the time and the groove is very important, and it was most important to Vince. So having it feel good, and it's challenging without drums. So I think that's probably what we worked on the most, was making it feel good.
So that we all agreed where it should be.
Rhythmic agreement.
Yeah.
Right.
Sustained rhythmic agreement. That was Vince's term for groove. Yeah. This video is actually recorded by our friend Carlo Magno Araya, who was sitting in the wings with his phone, and it's a performance at the Open Stage Club. We're playing Strangers in Paradise. And, as usual, Vince is just throwing us some curveballs, and we're just going with him.
And there you have part one.
Oh my God, there's so much more. I want to do a quick recap because we talked about that picture of Vince's mom, how it looks exactly like Vince Maggio, but as a woman. So I don't know if you can really get in and see that. Just put it up kind of full screen, because if that does not look like the exact imprint of Vince's mom on Vince, I don't know what does. I just love this photo. Makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's his face.
It really is. The other thing I wanted to say is, and I might get a little weepy, but Michelle Amato wrote, just about how it's like it's like how he's always here, just exactly like we knew it. And I had the last couple weeks going through the material. It was like it just would hit me like this music is not here anymore. It's like it's here, but it's hard to imagine that it's not here anymore. So that's really kind of hit me a little bit. But we're here for celebration, which this truly is. And I want to thank everybody so much for participating, for sending your words of love and your musical tributes and the pictures and the stories. Because I really do think he was so proud of every single one of his students and all of the music that he made and that his students continue to make. And he really was proud of all of that.
He did say that. Every time we talked, he would say, I hope that they realize how much they meant to me, and I hope that I was, important to them.
Yeah.
And made a difference. He did say that.
So all of these things, he is here. It's true. But we will be back tomorrow, and I want you to know that there's so much more that's gonna happen, and even there's gonna be even new countdown music, by Vince Maggio. So we're trying to get as much as we can packed in, and but his life was long and his web was wide.
For sure.
So it's hard to do everything, and if we missed anything, we apologize, and you can reach out to us and I don't know.
But we will look forward to seeing you all here tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night,
to
8
finish this
o'clock,
off.
same place. Like I said, it will be, everything's archived. So if you can't make it, just, watch another time, because there's a lot of great stuff coming up. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic night, and
See you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Good night.